It's 8 o'clock, I'm told. Certainly is on the wall. So we'll make a start. So the first item on our agenda for tonight, as ever, is apologies for absence, and there aren't any. As Val and I have signed ourselves in, there will be. It will show us all here. Representations from interested parties. Nobody is even interested enough to be here, let alone to make a representation here. So that takes us on to declarations of interest. Usual wording. Firstly, has anybody got any disclosable pecuniary interests to declare?
No.
Secondly, does anybody have any other interest to declare? No. The minutes of the meeting, excuse me, that was held on the 5th of February have been circulated. Present were myself, both Councillor Oakes, Councillor Fuller, Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Chesser and Councillor Robinson, which I think was another full house. So does anybody want to propose those? Or are there any amendments? Proposed by Councillor Fuller, seconded I think just by Councillor Chesser. All those in favour, please indicate. Unanimous, right.
This is very much like
5, 3, 19. So, whilst I'm just signing those, perhaps we could make a start. There aren't actually that many applications on our agenda, and those that there are probably not going to take us hours. But we can start off, I think, at 64 Rock Road.
Well, the first thing we need to talk about it.
Pancake day.
It's pancake day. And we'll wait for this. Waffling is not allowed.
Good man.
What a pity there wasn't an audience.
Okay. Two-story and single, the usual thing. But we've looked at this already. Maybe it's a bit confusing, but I believe that our assistant clerk will be able to shed a little bit of light on some of it. Now, we looked at this on the 5th of February and had no objection to this. But now, we've pulled up some public comments on this application, and I put it up verbatim, literally as it was posted on the ENC website. Right. Okay, and I'll come to you. I have a bit of a problem with this, and I'm hoping for a little bit of assistance. Now, this was a previous application, which the reference is there. Now, the application was actually withdrawn on the 30th of August on request from the applicants, and the architects with a view that some changes in the design would be made. Now, I couldn't find any record of specific objections logged at the time, nor that the application was refused.
No, I couldn't either.
Look, it could have been refused, and the information is just not on the ENC website.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that is the information I have available. Okay. We're going through the one we went through in January. I haven't found any material alteration to the plans. They've just basically resubmitted pretty well what was the original. There it is. At the end of Rock Road, which is less congested than the other parts. I put that bit in. Okay, and there are already a number of extensions built down Rock Road on either side. Now, you see, the other problem I got is if they did object, I don't know what the objection was. Okay, well, I'll come to that. Existing floor plans, that. Proposed floor plans, that. There we go. So that's the extension, that's the bit there, and whatever. If you want me to go a bit slower, it's just that I'm so familiar with this thing.
I did it last time.
Oh, yeah, we did it last time. Well, we did it exactly. Elevations are like this, so we're looking at that, more or less.
What's the problem?
And we didn't have a problem with it. Now, one of the things that might have been of concern to the people who have objected, and they're most likely obviously to be the neighbours, although I don't know if it definitely was them.
It is, yeah. It's to
It
the,
is
to the
definitely-
right as you look at the property.
It basically, one of the things that the architect did was show detail of the casting of shadow. Now, a lot of objections do come about the casting of shadow. In itself, it's not necessarily a valid method to object to something, but it can be. But what they call the right to light and all this sort of thing is incredibly complex. I haven't got to grips with it as yet, but one day maybe I will. But that's what they probably
Is
would
it
be.
66 who's complained or 62?
We don't know, because it's all, it's
There was talk, I know for definite the one that's attached to it on the other side, so that's 62. They spend a lot of time in the back of their house and in the garden,
yeah, in the conservatories, I think.
and so
Which
they're
they build,
overlooking
so-
issues and
Yeah, well, they're all right, aren't they? I don't know.
Is there a picture? Oh, that's the right one.
I mean, that's
So then you see the next door built and they haven't built, so you're just catching up, 64's catching up with 62.
it's,
It's NIMBYism.
I think they've just got a conservatory though on 62. I don't think they've got a two-storey extension, so I think they're pointed. And I think the little bungalow there,
Yeah.
last time I spoke to her, she said she was going to object, but I've not seen her since, so I don't know whether she did.
well, the thing that confuses me is, of course, as I can't track back what the objections were. You don't normally necessarily know who's objected, but you can usually guess. But as I say, originally we said no objection. Now, the big question is whether the objections that have been made will alter our opinion.
No. I don't think so.
Before we, in a sense, debate that, can I remind councillors that we've had an issue before about whether we should reconsider a planning application. And my understanding was that what we decided was that unless we had clearly made some form of material mistake,
Yeah.
Yes,
or that there was appreciably further information to hand, we weren't likely to further consider the matter because we've already considered it once. Now, whether the existence of an objection is of itself a reason to revisit, I would frankly doubt, because it seems to me that had we been aware of it, we'd have noted it. But if it's unlikely to have affected our view, then should we be redebating it? So ultimately it's a matter for us. It's on the agenda. We could, but whether we should is another matter. Councillor Oakes.
Well, basically, they put their objections in.
And that's
And they're as valid as anything that we may say.
in which case I'm tempted to say, well, we have no further comment to make. We have previously made no objection, and I don't see why we should change.
Fine.
Did anybody
I'm
demur
fine.
from
I'm
that
happy with
here?
that.
Right, in that case,
It's a very
let's
good
move
discussion.
swiftly on
Swiftly on.
to what is described as the Longhouse behind 13 West Street.
Oh, right.
Sadly, it's nothing to do with the Longhouse, it's all to do with the tree.
It's trees.
But it's that house,
And,
the house is called the Long
Yes.
But they've done an awful lot of tree work at this property because this is about the fourth or fifth
Yeah, it is.
application you've seen. And basically that's the tree, and clearly they want to do a reduction in its size for almost obvious reasons. But it's, again, we're only talking about reductions and we're not talking about felling.
And again, our policy is that if it's tree
I know that.
husbandry, we would not normally comment at all. I don't see any obvious reason to depart from that view either, so
It's a tree I know well.
Does it need a bit of
Oh.
husbandry?
Well, I used to know 20 years ago, or 10 years ago.
Well, anyway,
right. If your knowledge is 20 years out of date, councillor, I'm not sure how helpful it's going to be to us.
the last one we had was
We're
actually,
revisiting where David lives.
the last one we had was the holiday of the trees on the right, as you
So
say.
it's a tree officer. Good man. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Let us move on to something that
By the way,
might tax us a little bit
this-
more.
Doing the aging specimen and blah blah blah, keeping its natural shape, and Henry Pearson, who's our,
Oh, you've already seen it?
he's already seen it.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Right, let's move on.
Right. Whacking on.
Dun,
Well, dun, 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 dun. There we go. That's what we want to do. Here's an illustration. No. Well, no, I'll put next, but I'll put back. Originally, we were concerned about the nature of it being temporary.
Right.
And that was really what we observed, is that, is this going to be temporary, is going to be permanent? Inside the application, it says it's going to be modular building. It's on the industrial estate, Fagan Estate.
So it's semi-permanent.
Well, this is what our concern might be. That, I mean, what is, does semi-permanent mean 50 years?
It's not, it's longer than temporary.
No, but I mean, I don't know what else to say about it, really. All I can observe is that's what you've got. What you get is what you see.
We just talked about the parking, didn't we?
Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
parking.
I think that was the thing,
It was
you're
important.
quite right. Talked
The
about
parking.
it, the
Yeah.
parking, the
We've talked
density
about
of
the
the
parking.
life.
I remember saying that
There we go.
industrial estate from going to the gym is chaotic.
Yes.
There were 2 points, both of you are right. I mean, one, we were worried about what exactly this structure is going to be, how long is it going to be there, etc., etc., and the other was the whole parking thing.
Yeah.
So, in a sense,
It's the same again, isn't it?
it's the same scenario, as far as I can see, as the discussion we've already had.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And in which case, do we not just simply repeat the comments we previously made? Because I haven't seen anything which would make me think we should do anything
Yeah,
different.
exactly.
That was quick.
And if they're putting up another building, effectively, that's more people with more cars.
Yes.
I think that's absolutely.
Which is one of the points we made, which is one of the points we made
Yeah, we
originally.
did. It's not just the existing parking that's a problem.
But
There's no provision, as far as I can find on this, that they would provide additional parking elsewhere. So what you see is what you get.
Well, the trouble that we're having is in
overflow, yeah.
Ashton Road and the roads around.
The long
With
stay
parking,
and
yeah.
Ashton Road,
Is
yeah.
it, yeah,
Yeah. So, I think, whatever we say goes with the words that we encourage expansion of business in Outlook,
But
Yeah,
the
we want
parking
to,
has to be
but-
provided on the premises, something
but
like
we
that.
want them to show us how they're going to accommodate the vehicles.
Seems fair.
Classroom.
Well, no, this is a cop out that's been used on by some of the other people
No,
on the
but
estate.
you're looking for them to do
Yeah, but
something.
they use it as an excuse for not putting enough parking spaces on. So
Yeah.
it isn't an answer to the problem. They need to show how they're going to get more parking spaces on.
Well,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a serious matter.
oh,
Here we are writing to the company saying, you're parking in our Longstow car park when you shouldn't be. At the same time, they're refusing to tell us where they're going to put extra vehicles.
Yeah.
Very succinctly put. But I think, these are points that we, in a sense, have
Yeah.
previously made. So,
Yeah. And the only other point that I think we talked about a little bit last time is the one on the ecology of whether they're using temporary buildings as a way of getting over the thermal characteristics of a modern building.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be encouraging it. So if they're getting over that rule by a temporary building, they need a
is it
plan.
temporary though? It's a
No,
modular
they've
building, it's
changed
not
the
something.
plan.
They've changed the
They've
plan.
changed it as in, they're now just saying modular 3-storey office block, they're not
Yeah,
saying
it's
it's a
not
temporary
temporary, it's
structure.
not-
Okay, right. So as long as it's compliant then with the thermal regulations, I'm very happy. But very surprised.
however, our concerns with regard to the parking don't change just because they now no longer describe the structure as being temporary, it seems to me.
Yes. Okay.
And I suppose the fact that it's a 3-storey construction of the type it is, of itself, doesn't sort of strike me as being hugely a problem,
But the
bearing
use
in
of-
mind where it is and
The
what
use
it
of the
is.
word temporary is to lull well into thinking, well, it's not going to be up there for long, we won't have to worry about the parking so much. The reality is that if it's going to be a permanent building, we
Yeah.
jolly well have to.
No, I'm very, very pleased that they're coming back to Oundle,
Yeah.
you know, from Corby.
Have they, is there any way you can find out whether, how, is that there is no years to a temporary? You know, how long is temporary? Is there enough, there's no...
I think temporary simply means that they, if you had such a thing, you would expect the planners to time limit the grant, so that they would say this is a grant for 10 years or this is a grant for whatever. That's what makes it temporary.
Is there no way we can put that in there as well, keep that?
Well, they've taken the word
They
temporary
take
out.
temporary
Well, the
out.
point is,
But they put this to modular, and we know exactly what that means.
Yes,
It
so
just
we have-
means,
No,
you know,
people,
we have-
people build houses in modular, don't you? You see those big lorries with half a house, and they're
Yeah.
permanent, they're going to be built
No,
permanent.
exactly.
So we have
So
to
this
class
permanent-
this as it's permanent.
Yes,
building.
taking
It's a
away
public building.
temporary affects the
It's
application.
permanent,
Yeah,
not-
and temporary and modular are completely different concepts.
Yeah.
it's permanent.
Yes.
But modular just means it's going to be built
It's
in,
modular,
in sections. Temporary is all to do with time period, isn't it?
Right.
it's taken me all that time to actually find the paperwork from the
Well, we
previous
kept it
one.
going for you.
So, yeah, OTC has no objection subject to appropriate conditions being imposed as follows. Firstly, the parking space is taken up by the quote-unquote temporary building. Well, it might now be the parking space is taken up by the building to be replaced elsewhere on the business park. Sufficient number of parking spaces for the staff working in the temporary building, so just building, to be provided on the business park.
Yeah.
Then we talked about removal by a specified date, where if the thing is supposed to be permanent, that disappears. But it also, we said, the materials to be used in the construction of the building to be compatible with other structures on the business park. And that seems to me to be another perfectly valid thing. So it's a restatement, taking out those things that related to the fact that it was a temporary use.
Yeah.
Right. Sudbury House, Wood Lane.
Don't know that one.
Right? This is good. We don't have to talk about this.
Oh, it's there. Oh, it's that one.
Right, here it is, that's Sudbury House. And that's a shared drive. Now, we don't have to talk about it because it should not have come to our attention for consideration
Not even
at this planning meeting, because what happened was that the planning people sent it through, but they shouldn't have done, because they suddenly discovered that they've got an issue, sorry, what's happened here, with that shared drive, because they needed to have evidence of ownership of it, and they don't. Now, I know this area quite well, because I dealt with the old hospital and our house, and whatever, up there. They're way out of Oundle, as you can see. So, probably in planning terms,
Oracle distribution.
I've delivered up there, so I might have it. Anyway, but the issue, what happened was, they had to withdraw it, because they had to send out a note to say the issue of the shared drive has not been. Now, the solution to that, as I understand it, talking to the education officer, is that they have to put an advert out
Oh, right.
in the Valley News or something like that, to say whatever else. And if no objection has come inside, I think it's 6 weeks, then we may get the full application. But I thought it would be useful for you just to see it in advance.
And of course, it may be a long way out of the current built environment of Oundle, but it's still in Oundle parish,
It
and
is.
therefore it will no doubt come back.
It is not like the Riverside Hotel.
No, this is all right. This one.
Yes.
It's definitely
This was definitely
different condition.
Yes, it might be
Okay.
further away from the built environment than the Riverside Hotel is from the rest of it,
I'm
but
just saying that's
nevertheless.
tongue in cheek.
Right, that's going
Okay.
to take us on to what appears to be the last planning application, which is 43 South Road.
Shed. This is a shed in the new
No.
building.
Greenhouse.
Actually,
Be
quite
some
interesting.
shed and greenhouse.
You can see that. First thing to say, look, there's the blue bit.
Is that the shed?
That's the plan. That's the entire site. The guy does the shed.
Spanish.
The conservation officer had kittens. No, there it is. You can
That's
see it there.
Foxtel,
Yeah, no, I'm doing that in a minute. Crikey, right, that's it, okay?
I know.
Right, it's within the conservation area, and that is the reason why they had to put a planning application
Wow.
in, right? Well, it's actually not the sole reason, it's really complicated this. I've got a whole load of stuff here to do with Town and County Planning, General Development, England, Order 2051 as amended, no part of the proposal which situated with that. What they're not allowed to do is build and fill in the frontage. That's pretty much it. They're not allowed to do that because it's in the conservation area. Now, thank you.
Okay.
You'll probably know exactly where the building is now because most of us will know where Foxtel Lily is. And I've only put it up there just as a means of identification. Right, keep going. These are the site plans. You can see on the left the existing one, which is a topological one. And the thing is they're going to build a greenhouse and a shed. Now, one of the other reasons that they need to put in planning application is because the buildings can't be more than 2.5 metres high and they've got to be more than 2 metres away from the thing for you not to have to get planning permission, right? So they're going to do that. Now, I've got the extracts from the architect's opinion. It basically says single residential property falls within residential characteristics. Pre-application consultancy was carried out in early July. An application was warranted to the buildings being within the conservation areas. Blah blah blah. The proposed slope of the slab is offered new shallow pocket slab. The carpet structure is constructed with timber, glass and coloured aluminium framing.
Is it shed water?
Are we going to put that in as a requirement?
No.
I mean, basically, the buildings are very small and sit well below the ground level of South Road, because it does slope down to the river,
That's fine.
which can cause a problem for some people when the river gets up. Conclusion, the proposed will offer an attractive addition to the amenity of the cottage. Their addition is proportionate to the development and we believe provides a positive visual appearance to the gardens. I find it very hard to subject to this.
I mean,
It's a shed of the greenhouse.
if this wasn't in a conservation area, well, A, it would probably not have been on the agenda at all, but B, even if it had have been, it would have gone through on the nod. And the only observation I would make is that, okay, if the conservation officer's got a problem with it, well, no doubt we would want to back his judgment, but I would have thought it would be no objection, subject to the view of the conservation officer. Our sort of usual standard get out in these circumstances.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Fine.
And wouldn't you be delighted to know?
Hey.
You should have had someone eating a pancake.
I do think that that is one of the quickest attempts that we've had to get through the planning application. One of these days, I know we're going to end up with one of these agendas where there's about 15 applications, 4 of which are really controversial, and we'll still be here at sort of 10:30.
I'm not objecting.
Anyway, so we've done that. The next items on the agenda are simply planning outcomes. I draw your attention to the fact that we were not happy with the application for the laundry in Blackthorn Road, but notwithstanding the fact that we were not happy with it and we objected, and put in quite a long list of why we objected, it has been granted, as have the other applications. So,
No, they changed straight away, didn't they? Changed it to a slate roof. Yeah, they came back the day after and said,
They changed the structure.
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's changed.
yeah.
So, yes,
They listened to it.
that was the observation I should have gone on to say,
Yeah.
because it was pretty critical. That, of course, to give the school its due, and that's right. I think it was literally within 24
It
hours
was, yeah.
of them becoming aware of our objection, they had changed that, and that was really what we were getting excited about.
That's a
So,
relationship, that's not it.
so actually, perhaps when I put it in the way I did, it wasn't really a very fair way of doing it. Planning appeals, none. It seems to have brought us already to any other relevant matters for reports. So I'll simply work my way around the room. Councillor Oakes or Councillor Oakes, either of you. Councillor Fuller, Free. Robbins. Yes,
Just one thing to let you know the RSPCA shop and the Greedy Piglet, we've not seen any kind of planning for what they did with their signage. They've got case officers on them now, and they've both of them been asked to submit applications, appropriate applications.
that was something we talked about.
It's because I fetched them off, you
It
know.
was, yes. And I can't remember whether that was the last meeting or the one before last, but anyway, it's clearly in hand.
Have they made it very temporary?
And they were
on the
on their
piglet?
knees, literally, saying thank you for telling us.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So, which appears,
They were putting the signs up without planning.
if I bang the gavel now, that will take us 30 minutes from start to finish.
Actually, 26 actually, according to